And here is more from the president at that joint press conference with the European Commission president earlier. Let's take a listen.
We agreed today to launch a close dialogue on standards in order to ease trade, reduce bureaucratic obstacles, and slash costs dramatically. Fourthly, we agreed to join forces to protect American and European companies from better and really better than ever. We've never done like we're doing, I can say, from the standpoint of the United States. We've never done this well, but we're going to do a lot better after we do this deal and other deals that we're currently working on.
Joining me now is the British peer. He is a columnist, financier, and author. He's a former publisher of major newspapers like the Daily Telegraph. We welcome Lord Conrad Black. Great to see you, sir. Tough position going in. I don't think anybody saw this coming, what is going on with this EU deal with the U.S.
Moving faster than had been expected. I had not thought that Mr. Juncker was uniquely qualified to do this kind of thing. I thought it was a more collegial operation. They obviously came very well prepared and moved things. They obviously have had a very productive afternoon.
You know, sir, so they're also talking of holding off on car tariffs, resolving the dispute over metals. That's how the president went in strong. Is the president's position of strength going in strong? Is that working? Here's his tweet. He said, quote, "Every time I see a weak politician asking to stop trade talks or the use of tariffs to counter unfair tariffs, I wonder, what can they be thinking? Are we just going to continue to let our farmers and country get ripped off?" He also went on to say, Sir Conrad Black, that when you have people snipping at your heels during a negotiation, it only takes longer to make a deal, and the deal will never be as good as it could have been with unity. What is your reaction to the president going in strong with all of these negotiations?
Look, I understand his viewpoint, but in the overall American political context at the moment, he's not like President Eisenhower in 1954. He's not going to get widespread Democratic support for anything in the current climate. But I think everybody hopes that gradually the situation will become more calm and we'll get more bipartisanship across the policy areas.
You know what's, yeah, go ahead. You know what's interesting? They're talking about a free trade zone with the EU. Is that going to happen? What do you think?
I think ultimately it might. And I don't think there's a substantial problem between the United States and Canada in trade. And there isn't a substantial imbalance either. I think Europe, they can work it out. I mean, they simply have to work it out. I think China is the country against whom the United States has the biggest grievance and has the biggest deficit. But the president has already reduced the trade deficit by half, and he will go on reducing. He's perfectly right. There's no reason for the United States to run a trade deficit. And that can happen either by being more making the U.S. market less accessible or demanding better access to the other markets. But some combination of those things over a period will get us there. The details, as you know, in trade negotiations are absolutely incredibly complicated, and nobody except specialists can get into them.
You know, Lord Conrad Black, the Chinese officials are quoted in the FT saying they understand behind the scenes what the president is trying to do. This is China saying that. They understand how the president is seeing decline in the manufacturing sector, and the president wants to get high-paying manufacturing jobs back. These are Chinese officials saying that.
Yes. Well, again, I don't want to be gratuitous, but there's historically been some considerable gap between what the Chinese say and what, or at least when they deliver it. But I don't think there's any doubt the president is dealing from strength. He's at the head of the world's largest economy. It's now putting up absolutely astounding growth numbers. Unemployment is shrinking. Job creation is extraordinary. $100 billion a month being repatriated from overseas profits. I mean, he's got a very strong hand to play, and he does want to make agreements. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want the United States to live behind the Great Wall of China. He wants it to be active in the world, but on a fair basis. He's not a protectionist. He's a fair trader and not an autarchist or a mercantilist.
Let's get to the next case. Senators grilling Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Capitol Hill right now. Here is Democrat Bob Menendez questioning Mike Pompeo on what exactly was said behind closed doors at the Trump-Putin meeting in Helsinki, Finland. Let's watch.
Has the president told you what he and President Putin discussed in their 2-hour closed-door meeting in Helsinki?
The presidents have a prerogative to choose who's in meetings or not. I'm confident you've had private one-on-one meetings in your life as well. You've chosen that setting as the most efficient way to...
I just asked you a simple question. Did you...
You
can't eat up my 7 minutes, Mr. Secretary. Did he tell you whether or not what happened in those 2 hours?
Yes, Senator. The predicate of your question implied some notion that there was something improper about having a one-on-one meeting. I've had a number of conversations with President Trump about what transpired in the meeting. I was also present when he and President Putin both gave us a sense of what they discussed in the meeting that followed immediately after.
Did you have...
I've also had the chance to speak with Sergei Lavrov twice about the Russian view on what takes place. I think I have a pretty complete understanding of what took place in that meeting.
Did you speak to the translator who was at that meeting?
No, I haven't.
Have you seen any of her notes?
Senator, I have never been in lots of meetings. I've had lots of note takers and lots of translators. I've never relied on the work that they did for me to understand what took place in that meeting, and it does not need to be done here and won't be.
Did the President discuss relaxing U.S. sanctions on Russia, including CAATSA sanctions?
Senator, the U.S. policy with respect to sanctions remains completely unchanged.
Sir, what's your take on all of this?
Well, you've got two aspects. On the one hand, it's absolutely outrageous and insolent for these Democrats to purport to need to talk to the translator to check to see if the president made important concessions to a foreign leader. It is a preposterous and outrageous thing to do. No one ever did that to President Roosevelt when he came back from Tehran, or President Eisenhower when he came back from Geneva, or any of the other meetings that all the presidents from those days right up to to Obama have done. And the President of the United States does have the powers that he possesses under the Constitution, and they include the ability to speak with some authority, requiring subsequent ratification, if it gets far enough, with foreign leaders. On the other hand, I think what we are seeing is, if we look for it and do so in an open mind, is the beginnings of a possible agreement between the United States and Russia to evict Iran from Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. And that is what the United States really wants from Russia, as well as an end to its hectoring of Ukraine. And I think you see the beginnings of that. But the President of the United States, whoever it is, whatever the alignment of the parties, has to be able to do his job.
That would be extraordinary if that's the end game, to get Iran out of that theater. Quite an extraordinary development. We'll stay in that story. Lord Conrad Black, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your insights, sir.